Hello again. It's Jasmine and Stephanie from AO1 Fitness, and we are very excited and thankful to be part of another live broadcast with you. We call this episode every Tuesday night, 7:30 p.m. We call it AO1 Conversations, and we're here just to discuss things and topics that we feel will help all of us live life well and healthy and to the best of our ability and to reach our greatest potential. And that's our goal and our mission. So I just wanted to check in. Last week, we talked a lot about habits, and that was actually our second episode on habits. And habits is something that we really value. We know the hard work. We know it's not easy, but it is so important to us. So how did you do? If you're joining us in this broadcast and you caught last week's as well, we would love to know where you're at. Did you begin a new habit? We also talked about breaking habits that maybe are not as healthy, snacking or maybe starting the day off in a better way with a healthy breakfast or different things like that. So did you start or break a habit? But today we're segueing a little different. So if you happen to start a habit but fail, that actually might be really good for the segue today, because what we want to look at is our beliefs and our response to challenges and sometimes failure. And that really comes down to what's going on between the ears here, what's inside of our head. And the big word that we throw around is mindset. And that's what we want to look into. And specifically, you may have heard these terms, fixed and growth mindset. Yeah. Any comments, Steph?
Well, right off the bat, we want to give a shout out to Carol Dweck. Her book, Mindset, is basically what has caused this big turn so that more and more people are talking about fixed and growth mindset. So what we're talking about today is based on Carol Dweck's book, Full Rights to Her.
Yeah. And a lot of our own program and the way that Steph and I coach in our fitness programs, a lot of it is based off of that book. So we do highly recommend it to all of our athletes and friends out there that she's got some really good research and stories that just really motivate and help us to see how we can improve. We'll talk about what a growth mindset is. We don't want to jump too much. Okay, so the word mindset, I first heard about it when I was in college, starting my sports medicine, that kind of training, so fitness training in college. And I had one class where we talked about training the mental part of an athlete, and the word mindset was brought up, but that was the first that I had ever heard of it. But now if you go into the business world, the sports world, even teaching world, it's really thrown around. When was the first time you heard about it, Steph?
That's a good question. Like, I would say I learned most of the mindset principles that I really hold dear in college, but I don't think the word mindset was really used then.
Yeah,
I've probably become familiar with it in like the last 5 years, I would say. And maybe that's kind of when it became more prolific.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's been within the last few years. So for those who this is very, very new for, I want to just pull up the actual definition of it. So mindset is the established set of attitudes held by someone. And these attitudes will help you. It's how you perceive the world. It's your beliefs in your ability in order whether to succeed. And then it also will shape the actions that you take after that. Mm-hmm. Another way to look at it is just our lens. How do we view the world? How is our mind perceiving things? So it really comes down to your beliefs about yourself and around the world around you. So, and the two that Carol Dweck really brought out, and her research is really incredible, is fixed and growth mindset. Did you want to share what those both mean, Steph?
Mm-hmm. So you could probably define it lots of different ways, but to me, someone with a fixed mindset believes what you're born with is what you'll have. That effort will not make a substantial change one way or the other. So that could be with your intelligence, with your looks, with your abilities, relationally, all that kind of stuff is kind of set and fixed. And then growth mindset is saying that every opportunity you can grow that no matter what level your abilities are at, that with effort, you can always improve them. So we'll talk about some different examples, but it's basically what is your kind of intrinsic reaction? So you might be intrinsically a fixed mindset, but you can change that, and we'll talk about how you can make a choice, recognize the fixed mindset, and choose a growth mindset. So again, to have a growth mindset, you can be growing in your mindset.
Yeah. So the key there is that we have the ability to change. From when I was reading her book about mindset, one of the quotes or stories, that she brought up that really caught my attention was she was teaching a little boys class, and I can't remember how old, maybe grade 2. And the little boy came up to her after and said, "So after you've taught me about this growth mindset, you mean that I don't have to be dumb all of my life?" Because he was always at the bottom of his class and, just didn't have the hope of ever getting out of that. And it looked like he wasn't trying and he had given up and he was, a troubled academic, right? But she gave him hope that yes. And then later on, he applied himself and learned how to ask for help and exponentially grew in his academics and confidence. So that was just so special to see, and so much hope that all of us have in any area. Like that was about school, where we're really graded, and I feel like school is a hard, it kind of sets the bar right from the start because we're graded pass or fail in a lot of it, right? And that can really affect our mindset.
Absolutely. The other story that comes to mind with that she has in the book is the classroom that was put in order by their IQ test or some standard test that they used. And so they knew exactly where they are in the pecking order. And I mean, that's a really extreme example. I hope that is not really happening in very many classrooms around the country or the world, but it also makes me reflect, how often have I, not by thinking it through, said something that may have given someone the idea that they are fixed in their current state. And so our wording is important. That's another point we'll come back to.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just for to look forward, what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to kind of unpack a little bit. What does it mean to have a fixed or a growth mindset? And as you can probably tell, we're leaning towards it is better to have a growth mindset. So how can we grow in having a growth mindset? Improve a growth mindset. So it's not a double word there. And we're going to probably unpack it in a few different categories. So we'll start out with sports and fitness. That's our specialty. But we can also move it into some personal growth, school, business, and also parenting is really interesting too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good topics. Okay, so can I lay us off in sports?
Yes, that would be awesome.
Some great examples in the book about different athletes with different mindset. And there are definitely top level athletes with a fixed mindset. Like there are some people who are born with just amazing talent, and they may not apply themselves the same way as a growth mindset, but they're still at the top of their game. But how they deal with situations and how they come back from failure, it's very evident when someone's at the top of their game, if it's a fixed or a growth mindset.
Yeah.
And then when we take that down a few levels, I think about my sports career, which is very minimal, not high leagues whatsoever. But can you recognize in yourself when you've been out on a sports field or take another athletic endeavor, maybe a group class or something like that, and when you get the thought, okay, this is all I can do, or I'm only able to achieve this much because of X, Y, and Z, because I'm short, because I'm a girl, because whatever your excuse is. And then as soon as you have that thought, you have set the ceiling and you won't pass it.
Yeah.
But it's amazing those moments when you will allow that ceiling to be open and say, I'm just going to give it my absolute all and see what happens. And the impossible happens. It's those moments are quite amazing.
Do you have a story?
One thinking back thought that came was, I loved volleyball all throughout middle school up. But I'm 5'3" and I've never had a growth spurt. So always so short. And I kind of like wore that badge, like, okay, she's the hardworking girl, but she's short. And yet I think what's cool about it is that I had coaches who could see beyond that. And I actually had the title in high school. I was the back row specialist. They'd sub me on for the back row and they'd sub me off for the front row. And so yes, in that sport, I did have a limitation by my height, but my hard work was able to get me floor time. And I was on the court like for an entire half of every single game. So that to me was like validating of like, okay, there are no barriers. Can find outlets to really just keep getting challenged and keep pushing. And just because I'm short doesn't mean that I can't play sports, kind of thing.
Right. If you are just joining us in the audience, we'd love to know where you're at with this. First of all, just do you gravitate towards one or the other, having a fixed kind of, I've got my, not stereotype, but my mix made up in me. I'm either artistic or I'm musical or I'm academic, and that's kind of where I'm at. That's my specialty. Or are you gravitate more towards a growth mindset in seeking challenges and in believing that in everything you can grow and grow and grow? And right now we're kind of deep diving a bit more into the sports and fitness arena. And if you have an example, we'd love to hear that as well. My dad made his little quote, "What are you?"
That's a flashback to earlier conversation. We have to answer, we are success. Thanks, Dad.
I didn't want to answer.
Which is great. Great mindset training, just to tell yourself the truth and to believe what you're capable of doing. So like the belief is a huge part of it. If you don't believe it, it won't happen. But then the effort and the hard work is the other big factor in a growth mindset. So when all you want to do is scrimmage and play the game, but the coach is telling you got to run lines and do all the drills that aren't as much fun, the growth mindset person is going to go, oh yeah, I want that training because I know I'm going to get better. And the fixed mindset person is going to say, I'm too good, I don't need to train, or I'm going to look weak if I look like I need to work hard to be as good as I am.
That's interesting. She brought that out in the book a lot, that perception of feeling weak if you give effort. Can you expand on that? Because that really caught me too when she was saying that.
Yeah, I think like the fastest kid in class wants to show, if they have a fixed mindset, that they're naturally the fastest kid in class. They're not, if they're like secretly running laps at night so that they're the fastest, they think they'll look weaker. So they think they need to show their natural ability. And in the growth mindset, that makes absolute no sense at all. Like the growth mindset would be like, you can be the fastest, now do all that work and you're going to be the fastest in the province, in the country. You can keep on going, you can keep on improving.
Yes. I've got a quote from her. It says, people in a growth mindset don't just seek challenge, they thrive on it. The bigger the challenge, the more they stretch. So is that important? Is it just about wanting to improve your skill for the sake of being better at the game? Or do we need to have like a shift inside of us to actually like, no, I want it because I want the challenge? Or is it about the end goal? Where is the actual real mindset shift happen?
Yeah, so this one I find really hard to explain why, because I have just always craved challenge. To me, if something is easy, it's boring, and that's naturally how I think. So if you don't naturally think that way, it's harder to say, well, you should try to go for the challenge. So it may be that you start just by motivating yourself with something extra out there. So it's, well, okay, I want to work hard to reach this goal, and then reaching that goal feels good, and you start to recognize, okay, all those challenges paid off because they got me closer to the goal. And then bit by bit, I believe the more that you do it, that you will just start to just love expanding and growing and know that challenges are the only way to get there, so that you will crave the challenge. Not that we go looking for trouble and doing things recklessly, but that when challenge approaches, that you are ready for it because you know what's on the other side of it.
Yeah. So Steph and I are sisters, if you don't know, and I can vouch for that, that growing up, Stephanie would always seek a challenge and a bit of a thrill, but it was, you wanted to push yourself. You never wanted to stay in one spot. You were constantly growing. So so Stephanie's, you've kind of grown with a growth mindset, like almost naturally. I'm a bit more different, where my natural deviation is towards a fixed mindset. And I like things a little safer and to do things to do really well. Like, and it comes down, when I think about it, what I need to be challenged on is, where's my validation coming from? Is it my personal growth inside of, I want to grow, so the bigger the challenge, the better, because more opportunity to expand? Or am I wanting to do it good enough for the validation of whoever's there that will validate me, right? Whether it's the teacher or the coach or getting a medal or whatever. So that's how I'm kind of looking at it. And so after going through smaller challenges and I see the benefit of it, then I want more. So now I know that a growth mindset is so good and beneficial. I will put myself out there more, but it's not natural quite as much as what you have grown up with.
It's interesting watching you, though, because it may not be a natural growth mindset, but you're so goal oriented. So you would naturally go for the next harder thing and the next harder thing. So maybe the motivation was a bit different, but you still, in my opinion, watching you grow up, still put yourself out there and took on challenges. So, I mean, that being said, whether just creating a challenge is natural or not, there are many ways to come about this and develop a growth mindset.
Yeah. Anyways, if you're coming from a more of a fixed mindset, my personal encouragement would be to start small and then gain. It's good. So take another step and a step, because where you might have taken a big step right away, for some of us, it's scary. It's like, why would I make myself more uncomfortable if I don't want to? So it's just taking that step and then realizing with confidence, it's good. And then to keep growing. Let's touch, or sorry, were you going to say something else?
No, we can move to the next topic. Yeah.
Well, just in the sports fitness arena, another thought that came to mind is just talking about character development. And I mean, if you're into the big league sports, there is talk a little bit about that on different players and how they show their character on and off the field. But just for everyday people, how does having a growth mindset really develop that character inside of us?
Yeah, it's huge. Having a strong character makes a better athlete for sure. So it goes both ways. I would say if someone is constantly needing their worth validated, they will be more self-centered and less aware of people around them and the needs of others. They'll be more selfish. So having the growth mindset is sort of taking the spotlight off of like just that need to prove yourself and to look good. So, like an extreme fixed mindset would be cheating to win, because all that matters is that you look good and win. So I'm not saying everyone who struggles with a fixed mindset is going to cheat. That would be the extreme. Whereas with a growth mindset, that would never cross your mind. If you have an extreme growth mindset, that would take you steps back. You would never learn from that. Well, you'd learn in other ways from that experience, but you would never better yourself in your sport or in any endeavor that you do. So, I mean, that's an obvious character one, would be cheating. Another, though, would just be being able to separate, like you can be driven and in the moment and playing as hard as you can, but that doesn't mean that you're going to turn that into anger or maliciousness towards an opponent. So it's being able to separate from the heat of the moment. And that's not just sports. I mean, that's, two people vying for a promotion, all that sort of thing. Like your character will shine through. And if your goal is to better yourself, then you're much more likely to treat other people well. I would say.
Yeah. I don't remember the names, and I'm not following certain sports people, but I did just see a video online of there was some sort of running race, and one of the men was in front and he was in the lead. He was about to win, but he slowed down. I guess he thought he passed the finish line, but he was from another country, so he didn't understand the language. And so he was stopping, and there was a man coming right up behind him, and he could have passed him and won, but he realized what had happened, that the man just didn't, whatever, the confusion. So he literally pushed him all the way to the end and said, like, go. And like that, it was just a short clip, but I was like, wow, like that's character. Because someone after asked the man that pushed him, the athlete, why did you do it? You could have won. And he's like, well, what win would that be? Like, the man was clearly in front of me. He was going to win. He was the winner. And he's like, but you could have passed him. But what would my mother think? Like, so that really,
I love that.
It was a good, a very short video, but it was really good. And showed what really matters for sure in the world as well.
The one last thought on that is the truest, like, most professional athletes, in my opinion, like the champion athletes, they will hope that their opponents come with their A game, because they want to beat their opponent's A game and not have a little asterisk next to their win that said, oh, well, that person was sick or that person was injured or whatever. Like, that to me is like true, like, growth mindset. Like, I want the best competition possible. And along with that, a true, like, growth minded athlete will never make excuses for whatever. So, like, I can't remember the tennis player's name that was in the book, but there was never a loss that was his fault. It was the chalk was too chalky, or the sun was in my eyes, or I didn't get my perfect breakfast that morning, or whatever it is. Totally. And I'm sure we can relate that in other situations too. Like, well, I didn't get that job because they didn't understand my true potential, or whatever it is, right? Like, we can always make an excuse to make ourselves feel better, but what does that accomplish in the end?
Totally. That's a lesson, yes, like you said, in every area of our life, where we need to take 100% responsibility for our actions, for the outcomes that we were a part of. That's really good message. That's the height of personal growth, or growth mindset. Mm-hmm. You were sharing a story with me off camera about a CrossFit competition that you're going into with a lift. Did you want to share that one as well?
Okay. Yeah. So that one was kind of going back to limiting you. And it was the most recent qualifier I did, and it had a max overhead squat. And I like that lift a lot. But my immediate thought when I came into the gym, my head started going to what all the other girls in my division would probably be able to put up, and what limiting factors I might have, and my back might be a little sore today. Like, my head did all these things. And then I just had a pause and went, no, just get over to that bar, get warmed up, and lift as heavy as you can lift. And it just kind of was like this, all of a sudden I had no limitation, no expectation. And I felt this, like, surge of energy. Like, I don't remember the number, but I lifted probably way more than what I would have otherwise, or what I expected that I would have. And it was a really cool moment to just remember, like, just don't go in limiting yourself. Keep your mind open first, and then your body can limit itself. You don't need to do that ahead of time.
Yeah. So good. So good. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, let's see. Moving into the topic of parenting, how can we, for those that are parents or teachers, or just anyone who's influencing other people, another generation too, how can we approach them, the kids and students, with a limiting fixed mindset and a growth one? How can we identify it in them, as well as how can we encourage them to have a growth mindset? Have you noticed that in homeschooling your boys, or in others?
Yeah. Get a lot of firsthand opportunities to see both fixed mindset and growth mindset in different situations. And And I talk really openly with my boys, and I use the terms and explain to them what fixed mindset and growth mindset is. And we talk a lot about the whys. I feel like it doesn't do a service to a child to baby it down, but like tell them the actual reason that pouting on the soccer field, what's that going to give you? Or do you want to play soccer? Do you want to be a soccer player, or do you just care about getting numbers checked off for all your goals? Like that's not fun. It's not going to give you anything. You need to improve your skills. And so we talk a lot about those things, but it's coming back to the words that we used. So a child wants to please their parents naturally, or please anyone in authority naturally. And so the words that you use to praise them with, they start to learn, that's what I need to do to be accepted or to be loved or to please my parents. And so when we use these like very direct words, you are smart, you are pretty, you are talented, you are successful, whatever it is, now they've identified, oh, okay, I need to keep being smart, because if I'm not smart, then I won't get that praise. And so if we can shift our words, instead of you are smart, you can say, wow, I'm amazed how much work you put into this project. Look at all these details. How did you come up with this part? This is so creative. Why did you choose to use it? So asking questions and kind of praising the overall effort and process that they've gone through is huge.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. And again, like we mentioned at the beginning, school is a tough environment. Maybe it's changed now, but at least when we grew up, it was, you're graded with ABCD or yes or no. And so the process is not always highlighted. How did you get to that answer? Not just, oh, that's the correct answer. And so, I mean, for you, that's such a great opportunity to be homeschooling as well. So you're able to kind of walk them through that. But for teachers, even now, most parents are actually homeschooling right now because of the current situation. So it's a good opportunity to really deep dive into their learning process. Maybe we haven't been as familiar with it before. Maybe we've just kind of checked their homework, but not really thought, okay, how are you getting to where you're at, and encouraging that. That's really good.
Yeah. And coming from my son's a very asynchronistic learner. So one thing will be over here and one thing over there. And so it takes a bit of a detective to really dive in and see, okay, when a child's spelling a word, they are doing about 7 different processes to get to that point of writing out the word. And so is it the penmanship, or is it the thinking about the letters, or is it the sounds, or is it that they're flipped over, like so many different things. And yes, it's so easy to just see end result, cross or check. So yeah, I appreciate what you said, looking a little deeper.
And I mean, my kids are young, so I haven't really got to that place yet, but I'm just thinking ahead, like already, even in my 11-month-old baby, I can see a little more natural tendencies to things, a little more ease with certain abilities in both of them. So as a parent, I'm wondering, with a growth mindset, like beforehand, I think most parents and teachers were taught, like, find the natural ability and really try to exemplify that and increase that natural ability. Is that something we should still be doing with a growth mindset, or just giving them the overall platform of you can do anything, like anything is possible if you really put your mind to it. You have the ability to grow. I mean, yeah, Steph and I aren't very musical gifted, and but we've had moments in our life where we've wanted to be, and it is possible. For myself, I'm definitely not going to be singing on stage, but I took some classes and it did really help. Like, even if something that's not natural at all, didn't have an ear for music, but the ability to learn and be tutored, you can develop things and definitely improve in anything. So, no, do you have thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's so easy to get the label as a kid as you're musical or you're artistic or you're academic. And that example exactly of music was the one area where I was like, whoa, I have a huge fixed mindset. I just put myself in the non-musical camp. Yeah. But with that, I haven't had the same desire musically or artistically as I have athletically. So my natural abilities and my desire to improve kind of lined up in the same area. And I think a lot of people do sort of gravitate to things that they're good at, that they want to get even better at. Yeah. But if someone chose something completely opposite of where their natural skill sets may be, absolutely, that person can always improve, can always get to the next level. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's that nature versus nurture kind of thing. So you want to find what fulfills you, but at the same time, especially when we're talking about kids right now, I like to find certain situations that I know my boys will fail at. And it might sound terrible. I don't want them to fail all the time, and I don't want them to fail too big yet. But if I can be there and coach them while they fail a little bit and then a little bit more, and we can talk about it and they can come back from it, I feel like that's probably the best life lesson I can give them, because most people can succeed well. It's really hard to fail well.
Yes, that's a good point. Learning to fail well. That's really good. And that'll carry them further in life than winning what they're naturally good at. I did pull a quote from her book kind of about this topic. She said, just because some people can do it, like draw or music or whatever, accomplish something with little or no training, does not mean that others cannot do it with training and maybe even do it better. So if someone doesn't have the natural ability, it doesn't mean that they can't. They can have the training and excel. And that kind of made me think of our motto is "you're more capable than you think." And that just takes an even deeper level for me with the growth mindset, that you may not think you're capable of something, but that doesn't mean you're not, or you might think that, but it doesn't mean you are. You are capable. You just need to get maybe some training, maybe some more effort. Maybe you got to just take that step out of your comfort zone and prove to yourself, wow, I didn't realize I could do this. And you can.
Totally. Yeah, I love that. And on that note, with natural gifts and talents and that, like, we look at these heroes, Einstein, whoever, and we think, oh, well, they were just born special. But then look at like their lives, like Tesla, like so many of these like amazing brains were also probably socially quite just inept, if not having other mental challenges. Like, they poured all of their energy into their passion projects. And so it was, yes, natural talent, but a whole lot of effort on top of that. So that same person could have had natural talent and just coasted. And then what would the world be? We need these amazing people to throw their passion into what's in front of them. We need everyone to throw their passion into what's in front of them.
Yeah. I want to share a bit about my husband, because he actually exemplifies this a lot. In high school, he wasn't the greatest student, and especially math, he really struggled. Like, he was a C+ math student, which, you know him. But something switched in him. Like, later in life, he got very interested in computers, and now he's a data warehouse manager, just all the coding and all that stuff. And it just sparked this passion in him to do it. And so, of course, to get better at that, he needed the math. So he has spent years teaching himself. He hasn't taken any math in college or anything, but he's gotten free lectures online, and he's gotten books out of the library, bought books or whatever, and he just goes through all of them and programming, and had this thrive to learn. And now people think of him as very, very smart in that area. At work, they definitely look at him for that expertise, but it wasn't a natural thing.
That's so cool. Yeah. That's amazing. I would have thought he was just like really get math all the way through school. That's impressive.
I hate math, so I cannot even imagine how he watches these calculus videos for fun.
Yeah.
And he just gets smarter and smarter, and it's really inspiring to have watched his journey of that, because so it's a little shout out.
So if you can take something from this, it's basically there are no limitations.
Yes.
Don't let your brain limit you, and put your foot out there. Try something that you'll probably fail at, or try something that is just like seems scary. And like I think back to when I first started CrossFit, and I kind of went, well, what's the next step? There's got to be, is there any competition or anything like that? And I found out there was one, and I didn't realize competitions are for the really good people. And I went out there and got, I don't know, very close to last, but had a blast and saw, wow, that's what the next level looks like. Yeah, first competition was not a beautiful sight for me, but it was amazing. It opened my eyes to what's possible. So find the thing, like try and play, be the small fish with the big players as opposed to the big fish with the small players, kind of thing. Like always play up.
Yeah, that's so good. In closing, I have a couple of questions we can kind of give out for people to first kind of assess maybe where they're at with a growth or a fixed mindset, and we can just chat quickly about how we can continue to grow our mindset, and then probably wrap up. Does that sound good? So the first question is, when do you feel smart? So to kind of help see if you've got a fixed or growth mindset, is it when you're doing something flawlessly and you're perfect at it? Is that when you're like, oh yes, I am smart? Or when it's you're learning something new, and the neurons are firing and your brain is just like, wow, I learned something new. So those are kind of one way to kind of assess where you're at. And then how could we increase our growth mindset from that? If you are in the fixed mindset where you feel smart when you're doing something perfect and well, how could we kind of shift over to the learning camp?
I think one way to point out to yourself, if you're not sure if you're in the fixed mindset, is when you have a fear. Like analyze, where is that fear coming from? What am I afraid of? What would happen if I did fail in this situation? Whatever I'm afraid of does happen. What would be the worst that would happen? What could possibly happen if I do this anyway, even though I'm afraid? And then those sort of questions will help you kind of recognize, okay, no, I'm fearful. I'm going to look like a fool, and I don't want to look like a fool. Well, if I do look like a fool, I can learn from it in this way, and that shift over.
Yeah. It's also really good to question where your mind goes. So like if you were in some sort of competition and people outdid you and they did better than you, where does your beliefs go to? Like, do you believe that, oh, they're just smarter than me and they're just more talented? Or can you think of, oh, they must have used better strategies, or they must have really put in a lot of effort to get to where they're at? Like, where does your mind go with different situations that you come up with? Also looking back in your past, what measured you? Was it a test score, a dishonest action that you did? Being fired from a job can be pretty detrimental and pivotal for some people, feeling like I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't special enough, or I wasn't smart enough in that position. Just being rejected, maybe in a relationship, those can be hard times for people that can really spiral them, or it can be a moment that literally shifts them to break through the next barrier, and they can use that challenge to become stronger, look into and put effort into a new relationship or a new job, and really harness the skills that they have. You can take different approaches to those situations.
Yeah, those are good words. Is that the last question you have?
Two more that I thought was really good. This one was something that I take, I will look at myself personally, is how do I respond to constructive criticism? Do I push them away and like, no, Or do I like gravitate to it because that's going to make me better? That's going to make me grow. How do I approach that? Do I have resentment towards the people or thankfulness?
I find that so dependent on the topic. If it's like an idea that I've put my identity into, like, yes, this idea is going to be fabulous. If someone doesn't like it, I feel crushed. But if it's like a skill, then it's like, give me all the feedback. I want to get better.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because, yeah, if you put your identity and worth into something, that's going to take a new meaning, a level of that. Lastly, we did touch on this a little bit just in your story. Are you a person who, or not in your story, but you did mention this earlier. Are you a person who tends to avoid responsibility for your problems or failures by making excuses or blaming others? That is a big one for all areas of life.
Totally. Take ownership. It's hard, but do it. Okay. Well, that's a lot for us to chew on. I mean, the very basic of what is a fixed mindset, what is a growth mindset is pretty plain, but then pinpointing where we have each of these mindsets within our life and how to become more growth minded, that's where the work starts. So we wish you well in your self-awareness journey, and we'll continue to journey with you. Please leave us any comments and we'll be happy to carry on the conversation. Quick announcement for this week is that up until Friday, we will take more names to add to our 1 week free pass for next week. So it starts on Sunday. You can get a full week of trying out everything we have to offer with AO1. That'll be 3 workouts. They're done for you. They have tutorial videos. You can do them anywhere, anytime. But we also have 6 possible classes on Zoom where we'll be there personally to coach you through the workouts. You'll have teammates around you, lots of motivation and encouragement. So if you can make the schedule times, that's great. And if you can't make the live classes, the workouts will still be available and you can still do them. So if you're interested in that, just private message us. We need your email address to send you the program. And yeah, we'll have some posts coming out about that this week too, to remind you. So next week, we have Crystal Ladouceur coming on. She is a nutrition coach and a great friend, so we're excited to hear a lot of expertise from Crystal. All right. Well, all right. Have a great night. Thank you all, and talk to you later.
Bye.